Lawless and evil. That's what Attorney General Bill Barr is calling the deadly shooting of federal Judge Esther Salas' son in New Jersey. The AG calling on the FBI to investigate after a gunman disguised as a FedEx driver opened fire at the home, killing her son Daniel and injuring her husband. Police identified the suspect as Roy Den Hollander, a self-proclaimed anti-feminist lawyer who once blasted Salas in a book. Former head New Jersey County Prosecutor Robert Bianchi joined us earlier to weigh in.
We just could not fathom that. We figured it would have just been one of the quote-unquote nefarious or bad characters that either the judge or Mark had dealt with in their past, but not to be. An attorney did this.
Den Hollander was found dead from an apparent suicide. He was recently diagnosed with cancer, and reports say he may have been hunting down enemies.
Bob.
Welcome back. The prime suspect in the deadly shooting at the home of a federal judge in New Jersey has been identified and found dead in upstate New York.
Just a horrible case. Police believe he was the gunman who dressed as a FedEx driver and murdered the 20-year-old son of District Judge Esther Salas, also injuring her husband. Criminal defense attorney Bob Bianchi used to work with that judge's husband and joins us now to react to the tragedy. Bob, I'm so sorry this happened to somebody that you know. What can you tell us about this family?
Well, I used to work with Mark when he was an assistant prosecutor in the Essex County Prosecutor's Office when I was just a young pup. And he was a very, very successful trial lawyer and was actually in the homicide squad. He put people away for very long periods of time. So when this all broke out, I know everybody was pointing towards a judge, but the rest of us in the legal community were wondering, maybe this is also somebody that he had put away that has a grudge against him, not to mention many defense lawyers, because that's what Mark does now. Sometimes their clients are disgruntled. So in the beginning of it, we knew law enforcement was going to have to throw a wide net. Having been a homicide prosecutor for many years myself, you don't know whether it has something, the motive is with the son or with the judge or with Mark Anderl himself. And obviously we found out in a crazy and wild twist that really threw all of us lawyers, seasoned homicide prosecutors in shock who have tried so many cases of murder, that it was actually a lawyer that was a litigant before Judge Salas that was the person who's been identified as the person who did this. We just could not fathom that. We figured it would have just been one of the quote-unquote nefarious or bad characters that either the judge or Mark had dealt with in their past, but not to be. An attorney did this.
Yeah, so
allegedly.
Bob, you're right, allegedly. You referenced him, but let's go ahead and pull up the information that we have on this alleged prime suspect that police have now said was found dead. Roy Den Hollander, that is his name. You can see information on the screen. Self-described anti-feminist lawyer, had a case challenging the military's men-only draft before Judge Salas suffered from terminal cancer. That's the extent of what we know at this point. Just talk about the dangers of this job and how rare it is for something like this to happen, especially, as you mentioned, with it being a lawyer.
A lot of people don't realize this. Lawyers and judges and prosecutors are in harm's way all of the time. As a prosecutor, as an assistant prosecutor, I had many very credible death threats made against me. When I was the head county prosecutor, it was almost a weekly occurrence that my house was being surveilled by police, and either inside my house or outside my house. That's for a prosecutor. For judges, the same thing happens. It becomes a routine thing. Defense lawyers, believe it or not, are usually the most that are in harm's way, because their clients are disgruntled and blame their lawyer for being a problem. Now, listen, 99.9% of the time, nothing happens. But for that one statistical percent or point of a percent, if you will, multiplied all over a country, this is something that is a very real danger to judges and lawyers, and unfortunately occurs more often than most people would think. The twist on this one is that you just don't think it's going to be from a lawyer that's going to be the person on the other end of the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you worry about copycats. That's the big concern, I think, at this point. Let's go to the second topic. Prosecutor there in St. Louis filing felony charges against that couple who was brandishing weapons when individuals came into their gated community. Here's the exact quote from Kim Gardner in the statement that she issued. Quote, "It is illegal to wave weapons in a threatening manner at those participating in a non-violent protest. And while we are fortunate this situation did not escalate into deadly force, this type of conduct is unacceptable in St. Louis. My question for you, Bob, how can she bring these charges when there were people in that gated community on their property, and you do have a right to protect your safety?
Right. Well, she's right about the law. The problem is that she's not looking at the defenses that exist in the law. There's a castle doctrine. We often talk about this all the time. That you have the right to protect your person and your property. A fact that I found very, very significant, because facts drive what happens with the case here, is that these folks, or at least the husband, was outside in his bare feet. He had no shoes on. That would be a very clear fact to me that this person thought that there was an emergent circumstance happening, people breaking into the property. At least that's what he felt at the time. Whether that's reasonable or not will be determined down the road. And you have a right to be able to protect your property. And the fact is nobody got hurt. And the real blink here legally is that the prosecutor who filed the charges is saying, we're willing to put them immediately into what they call a diversionary program, which is basically a slap on the wrist.
Right.
So this was done as a political statement. And of course, the Attorney General has vowed to have this case dismissed, and the governor's indicated that they're going to issue a pardon if they were to be convicted. So this is a nonsense prosecution from a practical standpoint, and in my mind, a factual and legal standpoint as well.
Okay, and something we'll certainly continue to follow, as we know you will. Bob, thank you, as always, for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.